Okay, we are in the home stretch. This is the final video of the final chapter. We are going to talk about some of the mechanics of actually delivering a business presentation. What is the most effective way to deliver a business presentation? What are some ways in which you can overcome your nerves, overcome your stage fright? How can you best prepare yourself to give an effective business presentation? So let's start with the delivery method. You don't want to memorize your presentation, nor do you want to read from notes. God, nothing is more boring. Even some of my law school professors would read from notes, and it was just like deadly to be in that class. You want to be able to speak from the heart and from you need to know your material, but you need to present it in a much more extemporaneous manner. You need to prepare. Yes, being prepared is absolutely essential. Knowing your material cold, absolutely essential. But you want to make it look like you are acting with more spontaneity. You don't want to be canned. You don't want to have gestures memorized. You don't want to have the entire presentation memorized. Public speaking can be scary. There's no doubt about it. But if you follow some of the techniques that we'll talk about, and if you are prepared, and if you have organized good notes, and if you have organized a good visual aid to go with your presentation, you'll be able to overcome any nerves and any stage fright. So what are some of the things that you should do? What's something we talked about when we were talking about our interview process? How can you help combat the nerves that might develop during the interviewing process? Breathing deeply. Breathing deeply will help you overcome stage fright when you're making business presentations too. You need to be prepared. You need to know your topic and come prepared. You need to be as expert in your topic as you possibly can. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to be prepared. When I've been most nervous and when I've had the hardest time making presentations, it's when I felt that I was not adequately prepared. You have to be adequately prepared. You have to be able to, or you want to try to turn your fear into excitement. There's like this frisson of energy that fear creates. And if you can take that energy and harness it into excitement, it makes the presentation better. It helps calm you as a speaker, and it will make you feel more positive about yourself. And one of the ways in which you can overcome your stage fright is to give yourself positive self feedback, positive self thought. Think about how you are succeeding in this process. If you need to, take a sip of water, but you have to be careful about water because you can spill it. You can take a sip of water at an inappropriate time, and you just need to be very careful. If your hands are a little shaky, you may not want to pick up a glass of water until you're able to get yourself calmed down a little bit. Shift your spotlight to your visuals. You should know your visuals. You put them together. You wrote them. You edited them. You fine-tune them to the point where they are in presentation form. If you need to rely on your visuals, do that to help to regain your composure. Don't get too hung up with little mistakes. Your audience might not even have noticed. No one might have been paying any attention. So certainly don't focus on the negative. Focus on the positive. Focus on all the things that you're doing right. And when you're done, you can feel proud about the achievement of having communicated well and having gotten your ideas across to your audience. As you prepare for and get ready before your presentation, you must prepare. I can't emphasize that enough. I said it 5 minutes ago. Preparing and knowing your material cold is absolutely essential. You need to rehearse. Rehearse as much as you possibly can without becoming rote, without becoming stale. You do not want to memorize the presentation to the point where you've lost spontaneity. You need to time yourself so that you have an idea about how long your presentation is going to run. If you've been allotted 20 minutes and your first run through at home goes 30 minutes, you know that you need to trim and you need to be more concise and you need to try to make the presentation tighter. Always remember to dress professionally. Dress appropriately for the audience. Dress appropriately for the event. And remember to be as well dressed and as well attired as the best dressed person in that audience. When you get to the place where you are going to give your presentation, it's important that you always get a feel for the room. You need to know the room. You need to know what technology is in the room. You need to know what equipment is going to be available to you. You need to get a sense of the size of the room so you know how to fit your gestures and how much vocal projection is going to be necessary. You should meet the people who are in the audience before the presentation starts. Greet the members of the audience. Get to know the members of the audience. That will help calm your nerves because it will make you feel more at home. The more you can feel at home and at peace with the audience, the better your presentation is going to be. While you're speaking, always remember a little bit of silence to signify transitions is not a bad thing. You do not have to barrel through 20 minutes without a pause. A well-placed, well-timed, and well-executed pause can be very powerful and very effective. It can hammer home a point. It can lead to a transition. It can show something that is particularly important. Although I've said you shouldn't memorize your presentation, you need to be able to give the opening, your first sentence or two, from the heart, from the mind, without looking down at your notes, without looking at the PowerPoint. You need to be able to speak directly to the audience. Because if you can speak directly to the audience, then the audience will be a little bit more captivated and the audience is more likely to come along for the rest of the presentation. Once you have that eye contact, maintain it. Keep the eye contact. Not honed in on one person and you've given the whole presentation to that one person. Find other people. Maintain eye contact with various people in the audience. Maintain eye contact with segments of the audience. Don't read from your notes. You need to be able to speak in an extemporaneous, spontaneous manner. You need to control your voice, control your manners, your mannerisms, your gestures. Make sure that whatever gestures you use are appropriate for the subject and appropriate for the audience and appropriate for the size of the room. You want to show enthusiasm. Nothing can show can keep an audience involved as an enthusiastic speaker whose enthusiasm is catching and can help bring the audience and keep the audience along for the journey through the entirety of the presentation. Don't just read from your slides. That is not an appropriate way to communicate with an audience, because it does not show a lot of preparation. It doesn't show a lot of familiarity with the material. It doesn't lead to developing that kind of connection, the rapport that you want to build. The rapport will come when you spend more time with the audience than with your slides. So do not be chained to your slides. Do not just read your presentation from the slides. When you move, if you move from behind the podium, and one way to definitely keep your audience's attention is to not stay planted at the podium. You want to move around the room if you possibly can. I think you've noticed that when I taught in the classroom, I moved around all the time. I wanted to be able to keep your attention and keep us all from lulling into some sort of stagnation by just staying behind a podium or staying at a desk. I felt and I feel that moving around helps keep the audience's attention. And so you need to learn how to do that. Maybe we all need to learn how to do it a little bit more naturally, but moving around during a presentation can be very powerful and can help with the audience. You want to avoid digressions. You don't want to lose your place. You don't want to lose the thread of thought. And when you get to the conclusion, you want to summarize your main points. You want to hammer them home. And then you want to close gracefully, and you want to let your audience know that you are ending. You can take questions and answers. You can hand out any materials that you have. Your textbook recommends you not handing out materials until after your presentation. Sometimes you don't have that option. Sometimes whoever is sponsoring the presentation wants the materials in advance and puts the materials out for the audience as the audience is coming in. If you're speaking as part of a long full day or half day presentation. Sometimes if your presentation is being done online via the internet, your presentation, your slides will have been delivered and will be posted, and your audience can pull them down. If it's possible, try not to give your materials, your visual aids, out until after, because you don't want your audience paying attention to the visual aids in their hands. You want them paying attention to the visual aids that you have up and that you are explaining. If there are questions and answers, encourage questions and answers, except if your audience is a hostile audience. If your audience is a hostile audience, do not take questions and answers. That's an easy way to get into a situation where decorum can suffer. So if it's a hostile audience, do not plan on doing questions and answers. If you do take questions and answers, repeat the question and then give the answer, especially in a big space where your audience might not have heard what the question was. Try not to become defensive in answering questions. Try not to become defensive in dealing with any follow-up after your conversation. And when you finally end, again, end with another summary, a very brief summary of the points that you were trying to make, any clarifications that might have come out during the question and answer period, and give the audience a clear indication that this is the end and you're gracefully exiting the stage and your presentation is over. I hope all of this has been helpful to you in trying to think through how you are going to put your presentation together for May 7th or May 11th. I'm thinking about 8 slides, maybe 10, 5 to 8 minutes. The estimates are half a minute to a minute per slide. I don't want you spending more time on the slides than on the paper. The paper is much more important than the presentation. The presentation needs to be good, but if the paper is good, the material will be there in the paper and will translate much more easily over to the slides. We will have some opportunity to work as a class on the paper and the slides in these final days before they are due. You are always welcome to contact me. I'm quarantined at home. I'm not going anywhere. We can work through all of your issues. I want and hope that you all can do the best possible job on your slides, on your presentations, and on your paper, because it will be a good way for you to get started into this world of business communications.